On those lazy summer days when the heat gets turned up and you feel like there's not much you can do or want to do, those are the days that I tend to go back to watching Ed, Edd, and Eddy. It's one of Cartoon Network's longest running series, and I do say it is one of their best. It's definitely one of the few that I could say that most of my audiences are familiar with even this day and age. But if you're one of the few who isn't, Ed, Edd, and Eddy is a series unlike any other, with a storied history that is yet to be rivaled. It was created by Danny Antonucci. And if you know anything about Antonucci, you know how bizarre it is that the show even exists at all. Antonucci is, or was famous for these very grotesque, surreal shows, the kind of things that you'd find on Adult Swim or MTV. He was known for The Brothers Grunt or Lupo the Butcher, some of the most disturbing and gross shows that you'd find on mainstream television. And that was in the 90s, a decade with no shortage of disturbing and gross. Yet at the tail end of that decade, he found himself possessed to make a children's cartoon, which was completely on the other end of the spectrum. He did it on a dare. Someone thought that he couldn't make something for all audiences, and Danny Antonucci decided to give it a go. And oh boy, wow, did he give it a go. Ed, Edd, and Eddy is a strange mix of things that should not work. From the adult cartoonist to a very limited cast filled with jerks, essentially trying to screw each other over. Like, while some of the characters are certainly more moral than others, the characters in the show are constantly trying to get one over on another. From the Eds trying to fleece the neighbor kids, to the neighbor kids pummeling them in retaliation. The show is also very loud, using a lot of non-sequitur humor, and it has this loose definition of plot. It also has this strange animation gimmick with the outlines on the characters. One of the biggest things most reviewers tend to note about Ed, and Eddy is just how it shouldn't work. How logically none of these pieces should go together, and yet somehow, through the force of magic, Ed, Edd, and Eddy works, and it works really, really well, creating this super fast-paced, really funny, just really charming show, for the most part. The premise is simple. The show stars three outcasts. Ed, a lovable dope with an obsession for monster movies and comics, this kid with ungodly strength and a big heart.
Here, Eddy! Lots of hurt! Want the onions!
Ed with two Ds, nicknamed Double D because, yes, it is that kind of show. He's the brains of the operation, with a knack for MacGyvering whatever is needed for the plot. And then you got Eddy, the man with the plan. The plan to win over the affection of the neighborhood kids, or just their money. No matter what it takes, morality be damned. Unfortunately, as big as his plans are, his ego or greed tends to be bigger, and that causes their astronomical rise to crash land in Kevin's front yard. This is a setup that should seem a little bit familiar to you.
What'd he say? Quiet.
While I don't think that Antonucci has ever cited the Stooges as a direct inspiration for this show, he more pointed to the classic cartoons of the 40s through 70s. Ed, and Eddy really feels like a modern version of the Three Stooges. Yeah, three guys coming up with zany schemes that all too often backfire because of their flaws. Slapstick and outright chaos ensues. And as you might expect for such a setup, Ed, and Eddy revels in its comedy.
Zoppity zop zop!
Almost every single episode is packed to the brim with jokes. Even if you can't remember what episode the joke comes from, things like,
"Your plan is irrational, muddled, and inconsequential. Is that a doggy treat?"
What's the rock for, Double D?
or Bear No Beef Dip just stick out in your mind.
Good Lord, man! What have I told you about the needless taxing of one's digestive system?
I must obey my master, Bear No Beef Dip!
And most of these moments come from Ed, 1D. Now, in the past, I've ranted plenty about the idiot character before. Patrick Star, Peter Griffin, they all tend to get on my nerves. Making this kind of character is a tightrope walk. Having the big dumb brute who is capable of destroying everything, reveling in those non sequiturs, often making things worse for their friends.
Rolf, is that the support beam to the house?
What's a support beam?
It's easy to make this type of character annoying. And Ed does cause a lot of destruction. So many of the Ed ventures go awry because of Ed's childish naivete, or not being able to keep his big mouth shut. Ed works here because this show has another difficult tightrope. Ed, Edd, and Eddy uses the unsympathetic comedy protagonist trope. Ed ruining everything doesn't really matter too much because in most episodes you kinda don't want the Eds to really win. After all, they're trying to pull one over on people who are generally innocent, until they're messed with. Compare that to, say, SpongeBob, where so many of the episodes that punish Squidward are when he just wanted something like a relaxing Sunday or going to a men's choir. It's never funny to see Squidward suffer in those situations. However, when the Eds do things like sell empty boxes full of light bulbs under false pretenses, or sell tacos full of crayon and dandelion, all is fair game. A lot of the comedy is strengthened by Ed, Edd n Eddy's wild soundscape. While most shows use this standard toolbox of sound effects, or they're like Johnny Test and they use the whip 20 million times, the Eds have this wild sandbox of the most out there and unique folly that's just, well, watch. The sound effects are so iconic in this show, and it brings the comedy to the next level in some of the weirdest and just most delightful ways. Of course, as you'd expect with any difficult balancing act, the show does sometimes fall down. Ed, Edd n Eddy does have a slew of bad episodes. I even made a list of 10 of them a while back. Sometimes the Eds do get more consequences than they really deserve. Sometimes they didn't really do anything at all. To Sir with Ed is a good example of that, one of my least favorite episodes of the show. Eddy is doing nothing at all when Naz comes to babysit him, and it leads to humiliation after humiliation for no real reason, and it's just not funny. The bad episodes are definitely the minority here. But I will say, as the show goes on, the bad ones do become a little bit more pronounced. You know, Johnny's Arbor Day Party episode, the Pen Pal episode, the Shower episode, honestly a good chunk of Season 5. That being said, unlike most shows, the bad episodes in Ed, Edd n Eddy do tend to have at least a few gags that still work, that kinda make the episode worth it.
I know where you're going with this, Eddy! Nighty-night. Eddy's in pain now, he'll have to call you back!
The Shower episode has Double D's just complete and utter breakdown. And even the off-cited worst episode of the show, Your Ed Here, has Eddy dressing up like Jimmy, which is one of the best jokes in the entire show. The only episode I think that doesn't have any redeeming value at all is probably the Picture Day episode. It's just torturing Eddy for no real reason, and then it just kinda ends miserably with nothing funny in between. Most of the bad episodes do come from like late Season 4 and Season 5. At the back end, the show did get this animation bump, and it ended up looking a lot cleaner. However, I don't think that really fit with the overall feel of the show. Ed, Edd n Eddy has this stylistic ugliness to it. The show doesn't look bad, obviously, except in Season 1 where it can be a little bit too crude and awkward, but the show is in its own little world. Take the title cards, for instance. They're not aesthetically good, but they exist in their own world that has its unique appeal, and they fit with the overall tone. Besides the animation, though, I got pretty down on Season 5. It's because not only does it have an increase in bad episodes, the episodes that aren't bad are just drier. The school season has less jokes and less energy. Also, yes, the characters go to school now. This is one of those complaints that you usually get in a show like this, I think. You know, a status quo change. Everyone has to complain about it. Oh no, Twilight Sparkle has wings. Usually it's people just overreacting, and the change in the status quo does unlock new potential. While Going to School gives us episodes like Cool Hand Ed or Mission Ed Possible, episodes that I would not trade the world for, I feel the Ed's Going to School wasn't thought out very well. First of all, a good chunk of these episodes don't even take place in the school. They're on the weekend or whatever. But the school pushes some of the traits of Ed, Edd n Eddy to the edge of believability. One of the more famous aspects of Ed, Edd n Eddy is its limited cast. It has 12 characters. That is all you get. That is all you'll ever get. Until the movie where we make a big deal about the one new character who is mentioned throughout the series. This works in a neighborhood cul-de-sac. Not so much in a school that should have crowded hallways and crowded classrooms. Season 5 even had to force in Jimmy and Sarah, who are far too young to be going to a junior high school, to even get to the 12. And this hinders a lot of the plots in Season 5. We have so few boys that literally all of them need to be on the football team to make the episode even kinda sorta work. One of those boys happens to be Double D, but when being on the football team literally goes against his entire characterization, and it's not something that he would ever do of his own free will. It's one example, but Season 5 has a lot of little things like that that do build up. The school works for a special, like the Valentine's Day special, not so much for a day-to-day kind of thing, especially if you don't want to add in the teachers, and instead just have them silently off-screen. It makes the style of the show feel a lot weirder and a bit more distracting. I wouldn't call it seasonal rot or anything. Maybe I would if Season 6 was as full as it was intended to be before I got nixed in favor of the movie. But Season 5 isn't horrendous, it's not awful, it's not even bad, it's just, it has signs of a show slowing down after a 10-year run, you know? Like, it just doesn't have the energy that it used to. Season 5 has a lot of little problems that do build up to a big problem. But like I said, it's still totally watchable. However, there is one major problem about the show that I have yet to mention. The Canker Sisters. I've complained about this trio a lot. I think that most people who have watched the show have. The Canker Sisters' shtick is sexual assault. Like, there really is no other way of putting it. It'd be one thing if these characters were a little too forward, or having secret stalkery crushes or something like Helga Pataki. But no, when these three show up on the scene, we get the Eds kissed many times against their will. Sometimes tied down and beat up in other ways. I'd say in the 2020s, the Cankers are uncomfortable in hindsight, but honestly, the Cankers were uncomfortable in the late 90s and early 2000s. Because the Cankers pushed it a lot farther than most other characters of this type, before and since. These three girls make Pepe Le Pew and Johnny Bravo look like the heart of romance. And that wasn't bad enough, their advances are often used as punishment to the Eds when they step out of line, which is just bad jujubes in and of itself. Not that the show is about its morals, it's uncomfortable whenever the Cankers do their thing. And these characters don't really have any redeeming qualities to offset this uncomfortableness either. The show constantly portrays every single aspect of the Cankers' personality as just trash, and not like a funny way either. I also hate the Cankers because they're lazy. This was a problem really early on in the show. The Eds are winning completely. Their scam has taken off. Everyone has fallen in line with their plans, and there's no way the Eds can possibly lose. But the Eds have to lose. That's what the show is about. How can we fix this? I know, like, let's just throw in the Cankers at the last minute, right out of nowhere. Give them God mode where they can't be harmed at all, and have the fight be completely unwinnable. Damn near 24 episodes of the show end with a Canker ex machina, and it gets old. The Cankers can work. Like, the episode where they destroy the cul-de-sac looking for their ship in a bottle is one of my favorites because the Cankers are seen as this destructive force of nature. And they don't engage in any of this lovey-dovey crap, but their one good appearance is something I would happily trade to have them removed from the series entirely. I do have minor problems with some of the other characters. Sarah gets away with far too much. Naz completely lacks a personality. Jimmy has two separate personalities that don't really ever coalesce. But they're small potatoes that you can easily tolerate watching the show, because their flaws are forgivable. Jimmy and Sarah have really funny moments sometimes. And sometimes the characters are Naz, who at least doesn't get in the way. And I guess that's my overall feelings with the show. It does have its problems, but they're so minor when you get to all of the good, funny, and really charming moments. I think it will always be a puzzle how well this show works. As I said at the start, it's got a lot of qualities that really don't feel like they should go together. Something about the show's premise probably hits one of your show pet peeves. Like, I don't often like jerk characters or sadist shows, but for some reason, with like everybody, Ed, Edd n Eddy just gets a pass because it's that charming and it works that well. It'll probably always be a mystery, but I'm glad it exists. It's a wonderful show, and it is one of my favorites.